every person, they think of their mind as just a single entity that thinks. But the fact of the matter is, have you ever actually realized that you have the self-talk going on inside of your head almost constantly? If you ever pause and say, oh yeah, I'm talking to myself. Well, that's like kind of your brain in two parts. There's the thinking brain, and then there's the observer function of the brain. And the observer is this little inner voice that's just constantly looking at you, looking at what you're doing, and it's giving you feedback. And the problem is, for most people, that observer function is just very negative. It's always criticizing. It's always saying you're not good enough, and those kind of. So when people talk about having a positive mental attitude or feel good about yourself, what they're really saying is the self-talk observer function of the human mind needs to be reprogrammed so that it's observing things in a non-judgmental way.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I am your host, Cardinellis, and today I'm joined in the studio by Kwaku L. Brad Whitbeck, and back by popular demand, Randal Johnson, the author of this book right here, The 7 Secrets of a Stress-Free Life. We did a program with him recently that was really popular, so we've decided to go through this book chapter by chapter. Fortunately, they're very small, they're very concise, they're very to the point. It reads quickly like a Goosebumps book in a big giant font. I absolutely love it, and following the advice that Randal gives us after overcoming all kinds of things in his life, you actually live a little bit of a stress. I haven't gotten to the stress-free part yet, Randal. You know what I'm saying? But I definitely have noticed some improvements here. So why don't we just dive right in really fast? Tell us, for those that are tuning in for the first time here, just give us your Reader's Digest bio, and then let's just dive right into the introduction of this book. I actually want the audience to get the most they can out of this thing over the airwaves. Randal Johnson, go.
All right. So the easy background is that back in the 1980s, I was one of those kind of people that was hard driving, wanted to be successful, wanted to make a lot of money. I went to UCLA, got a master's degree in finance, went to Wall Street, ultimately managed giant multi-billion-dollar hedge funds and things like that.
Oh, wow.
The problem was these jobs are really stressful. And eventually I just was so overwhelmed with anxiety and all kinds of physical problems. You go to the doctor and they give you prescriptions. And so you start taking all these painkillers and sleeping pills and all of that. And ultimately, I ended up with a drug addiction and essentially lost everything. And then in the course of about 7 years it took for me to try to reassemble my life, I went through 4 rehabs. Addiction is not an easy thing to overcome. And when I finally came out on the other side of it, which I'm now 22 years clean and sober, I had to come up with a way to like reprogram my entire brain and my entire thinking. So in the course of doing all that over a number of years, I was able to cull out from dozens and dozens of different programs, self-improvement programs and therapies and all that kind of thing, new age ideas. And I pulled it all together and created an essential foundation principles that a person can use to essentially become emotionally free.
Oh, this is great. And so I love in your intro, like, I love how short your book is. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't try to be childish about this, but I just love that in a page and a half, I feel like I know you. Okay. And you gave, to be honest with you, your written introduction was even shorter and better than your verbal one that you just gave right now. You know, I'm just going to read it really fast.
All right.
About 25 years ago, I turned to drugs to medicate extreme stress from a high pressure job as a bank executive. When my problems became known to the bank, I was demoted and put on probation and eventually terminated. My wife took on multiple jobs to make up for the lost income. Add to that raising 3 young daughters, and the stress was overwhelming. Eventually, the situation became so extreme I could no longer function, to the point of contemplating ending my own life. I thought of the great harm that would come to my children if I gave up, and I couldn't do that to them. Right at that critical moment, a voice pierced my thoughts. It told me it was time for me to get up and do something, so I chose to begin the slow work to rebuild my life. You dove into therapy, 12-step groups, the whole 9 yards, and you say this, I love it. You say, my experience led me to the following conclusions. 1, negative emotions only exist in the mind. And 2, negative emotions typically result from thinking about the past or future. Dive right in, finish the introduction. What does this mean? Tell me the rest.
All right. and as I said, it's not clearly delineated in the book because for the purposes of having, a new age self-help kind of buzzy book, we called it 7 Secrets of a Stress-Free Life. But really, it's the 7 secrets to developing total emotional freedom. And so in there where I talk about what kind of emotions are sourced in the past, think about it. Guilt, shame, regret.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very familiar with those. Yes, I've got a PhD.
Are you, Carden? Do you know what shame is? I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
I don't think so.
Keep going.
So the point being that, all these new age things where you have to live in the present moment, Eckhart Tolle, right? Power of Now and things like that.
Yeah.
If we could do that, nobody would ever experience guilt, shame, or regret because you have to be living in your past memories in order to feel those things. So the question is, how do you overcome that? And now when you think about the future, what kind of emotions come up about the future? For most people, worry, anxiety, and fear. Not so much excitement and, oh, wow, it's going to be a great life. The problem is somehow, I don't know if it's DNA or what, but we're kind of programmed to always have a fatalistic attitude about the future, like worst case scenarios and, oh no, this is going to happen and things like that. And they always talk about, positive affirmations or, what was it, Chris Farley on the Saturday Night Live, I'm a good guy or whatever. But most people really just can't do that. It's just sort of innate in us to worry about the future's not going to work out the way I'm hoping. And so the whole point of the book then is how do you get rid of these kinds of negative emotions, guilt, shame, regret, worry, anxiety, fear, which all manifests itself in a present moment. Instead of being in the power of now and having peace and serenity, we live in a very stressful each moment of now where we just aren't enjoying life.
Okay, so I'll tell you right now, Eckhart Tolle's book is like 500 pages. Yours is a much more humble, like less than 100. So I'm going to read your book instead. So also, you're in my studio. Eckhart Tolle's not. So you end up writing this book. This book right now, again, for those of you that are just tuning in, is The 7 Secrets of a Stress-Free Life by Randal Johnson. Here, overcoming everything you overcame, you end up coming with these 7 secrets. And you know what? We're going to cover them in depth later, but you give the summary right here. And I'd like to read them for our audience real fast. 1, take total responsibility for everything in your life. 2, disconnect external circumstances from internal feelings. 3, identify needs that are really just wants. 4, give up being right. Wow. Did you and my wife write this book? 5, realize you don't know everything for certain. 6, if you must speculate about the future, speculate positively. I really like that. And 7, love yourself first, then others. Okay. This is awesome. Tell us then, okay, about the analogy that you bring after this list for anybody that might be getting the book first. P.S. With that said, we're going to have a link to this book in the description of the video version of this. For those of you that are listening on the radio, you can check this out on hometownstation.com. If you're listening on FM 98.1 or AM 1220, you can also just Google the book on Amazon, I am sure. But on page 4 of the printed version, well, the end of 3 and the beginning of 4, you then bless us with an analogy. Can you jump right into that analogy?
Yeah, of course. So most people are familiar with the idea of a pressure cooker. You have it on a burner and it cooks vegetables, things a lot faster because it's being cooked under pressure. Right? You have that top lid that clamps on, you crank up the heat and that pressure builds. Now, if the pressure gets too high, there's the little valve in the top of the lid and it will pop open and then the pressure will be released. That's kind of how it works for most people that try to manage their stress with things like meditation or exercise or diet or all the things they try to tell you how to manage stress out there in the popular, cultural milieu of stress management techniques.
Is that the real pronunciation of the word?
Yeah.
Is it milieu? Is it milieu?
Yeah, it's a French word. Don't expect it to make sense.
Now, the audience that can't see your face has to understand you're Canadian. You're allowed to make those jokes. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, okay, cool. Keep going, Randal.
Okay, so now let's say that you're trying to manage your stress by meditation. Okay, now you meditate for half an hour, you get rid of all that stress, you're feeling good, and then you get back to doing whatever you were doing. Well, as soon as you stop meditating, the stress is just going to start building up again. And that's like the pressure cooker. As soon as the valve opens, the steam releases, the pressure's gone, but then the valve closes again, and then because it just heats up and the pressure builds. So the idea behind the 7 secrets is this. Don't just try to open the valve and keep releasing stress. The idea is turn off the burner. And then there's no motivation for stress to ever occur in the first place.
Okay, well, what's the burner? I mean, easier said than done, bro. Like, oh, just turn off the burner, you know? Like, that's like saying, oh, you're economically stressed. Well, just get more money.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Have you
So,
tried
what's
not
that?
being stressed?
So,
Yeah.
in the very next paragraph, I answer that question.
Okay, hit it. Hit it.
All right. So how about if I just read it?
Just read it, brother.
This is the most important point of the entire book. Unlike anything you've ever read on the subject, I am claiming here that that stress is not due to any conflicts you are experiencing, such as relationships, work, or money. The fundamental premise of this paradigm is that the source of stress is the conflict between your current way of thinking and the principles of the 7 secrets. Because of this, the formula and the 7 principles are universal and will work for anyone.
All right. So that's a pretty bold claim that the principles are universal and will work for anyone. And then you divide it up right before the chapter ends in literally only 2 or 3 paragraphs on 1.5 pages later into 2 different stages. So I love the bold claim that, hey, a lot of these other things that people say you got to do in New Age or spirituality are great and they're awesome, but they may be that lid on a pressure cooker. Okay. They may be kind of like coping mechanisms. We're not necessarily ending the source of the stress. I suggest, just like fire extinguishers are pointed at the base of the flame, that we, treat the base of the flame, which is the stress itself. And you divide it in stages 1 and 2. Okay. So stage 1 and 2, hit it.
Well, actually, I think we're going to cover the effortless stress elimination formula later in the broadcast. And,
okay.
And what that little thing is, before we get to the whole chapter on it, let me just give you a 2-paragraph summary of it.
Cool, hit it. Yeah, tell me.
Okay, well, here's the idea. What you want to, every person, they think of their mind as just a single entity that thinks. But the fact of the matter is, have you ever actually realized that you have the self-talk going on inside of your head almost constantly? If you ever pause and say, oh yeah, I'm talking to myself. Well, that's like kind of your brain in 2 parts. There's the thinking brain, and then there's the observer function of the brain. And the observer is this little inner voice that's just constantly looking at you, looking at what you're doing, and it's giving you feedback. And the problem is, for most people, that observer function is just very negative. It's always criticizing. It's always saying you're not good enough, and those kind of. So when people talk about having a positive mental attitude or feel good about yourself, what they're really saying is the self-talk observer function of the human mind needs to be reprogrammed so that it's observing things in a non-judgmental way.
Okay, I got to jump in right here, and I want to rope in Kwaku here. Okay, what you're saying right here, it's awesome. It's kind of Eckhart Tolle, kind of New Age, kind of all that stuff. But I couldn't help but think that it reminded me of like the ancient Hindu and the ancient Buddhist faiths that talk so much. Like, this is almost like straight up Taoism. Okay. I'm going to get into your formula, this specific 2023 formula in this book that was written within the past decade. All right. But I got a question for you, both Kwaku and Randal. Does this ring a bell of any of the ancient faiths? Like, to me, this sounds like the straight up Tao Te Ching almost. Was there any inspiration for this, Randal, from the Tao? Actually, did anything jump out at you, Kwaku? Because I know that you study this stuff like crazy, and I love your insights. And then also, Randal, was any of this stolen from that? I shouldn't say stolen, but was any ancient faiths...
did they inspire it?
Yeah, inspire. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. You're like my script girl. It's awesome.
I got you.
So, hit it, Kwaku.
Yeah, so I mean, it has hints of what you were just describing. It's the self observing the self, right? So we can self-reflect, but can our self reflect, right? Can we step out of ourselves, and can that self step out of itself to view the self?
Wow, this is like Inception,
so it's kind of
dream within a dream, baby. I'm digging.
Well, it's Zohar stuff, right? This is reflections on the Kabbalah, and I guess
It wasn't that the Adam Sandler movie Don't Mess with the Zohar?
Whoa. That would be a very different
Zohan.
movie.
Don't mess with the Zohan.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
Don't mess with the Zohar is I'd watch that one definitely.
Yeah, that would be an interesting.
Oh yeah, I was about to say. Sorry, I thought it was the same thing. I wasn't trying to be coy.
No, yeah,
I mean,
no.
Okay.
So I mean, it is interesting because you do have to. Ultimately, your book is making the case that the things that are causing us all the stress ultimately stem from what we would consider the ego, whether consciously or subconsciously, right? It's the fear of what's going to happen to me, and all of the Hermetic principles ultimately come down to finding a way to remove the ego, which is the source of all the inner pain, which turns into external stress. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hermetic elements of what I've read so far, and Kybalion and Kabbalah and all the mysticism, even like Rosicrucianism and all that. It all goes back to the Hermetic principles.
Okay.
Which is Hermes Trismegistus, who was probably Enoch.
Right. I love how you just threw that right in there. Well, okay. Well, that was
That's
also
what Muslims believe.
Oh, shut up!
Muslims
Really?
believe that Hermes Trismegistus was Enoch.
Okay, I love this. We could talk for hours. That's gonna have to be a podcast.
He also had a Liahona.
Oh, all right. Rock on. Even better.
Yeah.
We just keep upgrading. So, all right, Randal.
Yeah.
Keep going, my man.
All right. So this is Ward Radio. We know this is founded in people that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Rock on. Okay.
I am a member, and I did my mission in Japan.
Okay.
And
Cool.
so obviously while I was there, I had many discussions with the Buddhist monks in the temples. You're not really, in the 70s, you really weren't baptizing anybody in Japan. So,
Okay. Okay.
I mean, we had one person, they were ready to be baptized, but they had to leave their butsudan so they could do the Shinto worshiping to save their ancestors. Could they do both? That was like the closest.
rock on. Okay.
I almost got there. So anyway, the point was, I became very interested in Buddhism. I started practicing Zen through the use of the shakuhachi. I had a shakuhachi master that on P days I would go study with. And so, Zen became something that I began to study then and continued to study after I returned home. And there's definitely a lot of that, Buddhist concepts in the same idea.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Hey, well, is that just the introduction then? Did we just cover all of the introduction basically?
I think there's just one more thing to say, and I'm not sure it's in the introduction, but I think it's in the...
Well, I'll just cover one thing that I liked right here. Okay. You said, as we begin to explore the 7 secrets, you may find yourself wanting to disprove these new principles. And that just reminded me so much of that quote that says, it's not actually our weakness that scares us. It's our potential strength that truly frightens us. And we almost have that tendency to knee jerk against that. And I think that is just an eternal principle that if you can recognize that that's part of, unfortunately, the human condition and human weakness, you're probably pointed towards improvement and are in the right direction. I dig that.
And just in that mindset, I was thinking about how this made me think of the quote that we suffer more in our minds than we do in reality, right? And I really, really liked the way that you have set this up with the past dealing with guilt, shame, and regret, and the future dealing with stress, worry, and fear. I think that's such a simple way to help people visualize, okay, which of those things am I doing more often? How do I get rid of those things in a meaningful way that helps me live more presently?
Yeah, it's awesome. And then you continue saying, you might come up with the extreme scenarios where the secrets don't appear to work. I ask you to set such thoughts aside for now. Give yourself a chance to try this new approach and see if your life becomes less stressful. You literally sound like I sounded on my mission. Like that was, I'm not kidding you. I was a very odd missionary. I didn't give a crap about the theological arguments that people would make. I was all about the practicalities. And I literally told people, I said, hey, just try it out for 6 weeks, see if it works. Try it out for 6 days, see if it works. And if the promise given you in scripture, if the promise given you in the Book of Mormon doesn't become a reality, then it's garbage. It's not for you, and you can move on being completely satisfied that you gave it your best effort, right? And nobody that ever took that 6-week challenge ever said no.
Exactly.
So I like this. You are ostensibly, figuratively, and literally speaking my language, bro. So I'm digging this. You continue to say, the more open-minded you are, the easier it will be to apply these principles to your daily life, and then give 2 caveats. Now, without reading your own book, bro, what were the 2 caveats?
Some problems in the mind are clinical, medical. And so, this book isn't going to, if you're bipolar, if you're a psycho, it's not going to solve those problems. So you need medical advice.
Yeah, okay.
Work with a psychiatrist.
I love the sensitivity.
Statement.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was just, you were from the 70s.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying?
Randall, what do you think about?
Well, he was going to say the second one and then ask your question.
Sorry. Yeah.
What was the second caveat?
I think the second one was there's extreme situations where the principles may fall apart, and don't go there. Was that it or no?
Okay, no, yeah, close enough. Okay. You finish saying, I'm just going to read this and then Kwaku can take us home. My hope is that something in this book will trigger an aha moment. I love that. In which you suddenly realize the power of this new way of thinking. And as the principles become part of your mind and your heart, you'll find yourself living a life of wonder, fantastic, exciting, spontaneous, successful, whole, complete, and fulfilling. That was a little bit, I'm waiting in line at Disneyland for the Wonder Woman ride. Like, I think you oversold it a little bit on that one, but you ended it really well. All right. You ended it really well. And you said, and best of all, you'll be stress-free. That's my life today. And I wish the same for you. So let's get started on your journey to a stress-free life. I can't think of a better way to start a book in less than 7 pages than the way you just did now. It's awesome. Kwaku, we got 1 minute left, bro. Tell us what we got.
Oh boy. I was going to say, what do you think?
We can stretch it.
What do you think of Scientology?
I studied it. I've been e-metered.
Okay.
The problem was that I don't think I have any thetans left in me because I processed them all out. But when they did the e-meter, it went off the scale and said, oh yeah, you need some heavy Scientology, about $100,000 worth. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical.
Oh, rough. I'm not going to include that on the radio.
Fair enough.
Funny, you know? Anyway, okay. This is great.
Actually, who are your favorite New Age authors? I want to see if we have any in common. I'm thinking of like 5 right now.
Okay. Werner Erhard is my #1 favorite author. He invented EST, the original. Now it's called Landmark Forum. He did the transformation, 2 days, 2 weekends, and transforms you into a person that's transcends, full Buddhist enlightenment in 4 days.
Okay.
He was great.
Wow.
And then another person I like, Byron Katie. Have you ever heard of her? She has a program called The Work. It's really simple. You have 4 questions. Whenever you have a problem or you're stressed, you got to think. You just ask yourself 4 questions, and if you do it over and over and over enough, you solve all your problems. I like that because it was simple. And then I took it. So I'm a PhD student right now. I haven't really covered that. I took a class in American Scripture, I think it was what it was called. And we studied the Book of Mormon, but we also studied A Course in Miracles. And I'm a huge fan of A Course in Miracles. So Marianne Williamson did her own interpretation of it in Return to Love. I think that's really powerful. And then let's see, is there anybody else that I mentioned Eckhart Tolle, that Power Now was influential.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, well, I have a suggestion here. Unfortunately, we got a hard out, but I want to get you back, and I actually want to, if you are up to this, I want to go chapter by chapter in your book so that our audience has a chance to discover your formula and see how this works so they can apply it to their daily lives and hopefully de-stress themselves. Would you be down about maybe doing a series on this with us?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to plan that. Unfortunately, got to go on a commercial break right now, but you guys are listening to AM 1220 and FM 98.1 KHTS. For this and more, please check us out at wardradio.com. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Before you go, please make sure that you like the video, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please let this be the video in which we earn your subscription and that you press the alert button so you're alerted to all of our fun live streams and standalone videos and community posts. Also, if you'd like to help us out, please consider joining the channel. Members get all kinds of cool perks and benefits. They get early access to a lot of our videos and special emoticons and emojis during our live streams and preferential treatment there. It's a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, we have a super cool Discord. If you'd like to join our Discord, check us out on wardradio.com. There's a link to the Discord there. Also, you can sign up there for our newsletter. Our newsletter is a lot of fun, and you can put your email address in there. And if you'd like to contribute to the program, please consider looking us up on Venmo or on the Cash App. We're on both of those platforms. Also, if you just want to keep watching more content, right about here and probably right about here are going to be some more videos. Please check those out. And as always, for this and more, please make sure that you look us up and check us out at wardradio.com.